I'm not gonna mince words here. Dennis McField is a traitorous snake and shouldn't be regarded with any kind of adoration. Sure, he showed up to help Yuya and the rest of the Lancers out to help fight against the invading forces of academia, but spoilers, Dennis turns out to be an agent of the fusion dimension the entire time, using the bright and colorful appearance of his monsters to hide the twisted evil that lurks below the surface, much like his own heinous actions. It doesn't matter if he genuinely wants to become a world-renowned dual-tainer. It doesn't matter that he feels earnest remorse for having backstabbed those that trusted him. And it doesn't matter that he's a funny little guy just like me. And no, I am not projecting. Speaking of which, hello everyone, GoldenNova here, and Performages, introduced in the August 2015 core set, Clash of Rebellions, were released into the game with an immediate impact. Decks looking to utilize the powerful generic options locked away in the Rank 4 toolbox now had an engine to do so with absurd efficiency, and would then become a huge staple in the aptly named Performapal Pendulum deck, once their Pendulum cards premiered. And as of the latest Animation Chronicles set, a whole new batch of entertainment mages, or Enter-mages if you will, are set to take center stage. Will their antics raise the ante, or is their routine old hat? Let me walk you through all their cards, new and old, so hold your applause until the finale. It's time for Performages Explained. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons, as well as the wonderful people over at Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. So what's the deal with Performages? Well, they're a series of spellcaster monsters that have an affinity for summoning out a lot of material to facilitate extra deck summons, but their personal twist involves a fair bit of burn damage. Many effects will deal damage to either you, your opponent, or both, though we come with a few ways to either mitigate, reflect, or even benefit from that happening. Previously, our only extra deck monsters on theme were Xyz, but now, much like in the show, the mask is off, revealing that he also has a fusion monster in his roster. Let's start things off with one of our more popular performers, Performage Damage Juggler, a level 4 light monster with 1500 attack and 1000 defense. And when a card or effect is activated that would inflict damage to you as a quick effect, you can discard this card to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. During the battle phase, as a quick effect, you can discard this card to reduce the next battle damage you would take this turn to 0. You can also banish this card from your grave to add a Performage monster from your deck to your hand, except a copy of this card. This is one of the primary reasons why this deck worked with any deck that had discard outlets, because you could just pitch this and turn it into any other Performage, and that's gotten even better now that we have even more targets to search. It also gives you some strong protection during the battle phase with that damage reducer, though if you want to be tricky, you don't even have to use this against any real damage. If you need the search, you can just go to battle phase and pitch this. It also randomly having burn damage protection is also pretty funny against random matchups, as well as the mirror match, a comparison I was hoping to hold off to until we talked about Performage Mirror Conductor, so you can see I'm not very good at juggling these references. Performage Fire Dancer is a level 4 fire pendulum monster with 1400 attack, 1200 defense, and a scale of 6. As a spell card, once per turn, you can target a Performage monster you control, granting it piercing battle damage that turn. As a monster, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a Performage monster from your deck to your hand, except a copy of this card. And if this card on the field is destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can target a face-up monster on the field and it loses 500 attack. Yeah, we've got a Stratos Pendulum monster. It's pretty goofy, potentially giving you a search every turn that you can Pendulum summon it. But even without set scales, its first summon will still complement itself with another monster. And the piercing isn't that bad either, as we have a few monsters that have multiple attacks. So enabling them to get through defensive setups at no drawback is pretty sweet. In fact, you could say that it's pretty fire. Performage Flame Eater is a level 4 fire monster with 1200 attack and 1600 defense, and during either player's turn when a card or effect is activated that would inflict damage to you, you can activate this effect, making it so you can't special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except Performage cards. Also, special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, make that effect damage to you, 0. If summoned this way, banish it when it leaves the field, and if this card is normal or special summoned, each player takes 500 damage. The lockout on the self-summon is a little overkill, and might be a good reason not to use it, though the on-summon effect to burn everyone actually has some practical uses with our other cards. Though I think the funniest part about this is, in a world where players randomly use burn or heal cards to skirt around time rulings, Flame Eater affecting both players means that it can't actually be used that way. But, you know, it makes sense. If you feed fire to a bomb, no one around there is walking away with all their limbs intact. Performage Hat Tricker is a level 4 Earth monster with 1100 attack and defense, and if 2 or more monsters are on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. During either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that would inflict damage to you, you can place a Performage counter on this card, maximum of 3. Then, make that effect damage 0. When the third Performage counter is placed on this card, its attack and defense become 3,300? What? That's such a wild effect. Deal with enough burn effects, and you now have a monster that rivals Blue Eyes that you can just summon for free from your hand. Though that was never quite what it was used for. In general, it was used as some kind of extension tool. In fact, it's kind of the opposite of all those monsters that special summon themselves from your hand for free if you control no monsters. But Hat Tricker actually benefits from a busy field, no matter if you're the one with monsters or your opponent. And that means multiple Hat Trickers can get out of hand because there's no once per turn clause here. Not to mention that we now have 2 Performages that can search this. And then if you get enough self-burn effects going, you can just randomly turn this into a monster that rivals most others in terms of sheer attack power. Whether you're looking to make more rank 4s, climb the link ladder, or go on the beatdown, this monster will certainly do the trick. Performage Mirror Conductor is a level 4 light pendulum monster with 600 attack, 1400 defense, and a scale of 3. As a spell card, once per turn, you can target a face-up special summoned monster on the field, and its attack and defense become equal to whichever is its lowest stat until the end of the turn, even if this card leaves the field. As a monster, once per turn during either player's turn, you can target a face-up monster on the field and switch its current attack and defense, then take 500 damage, and those stat changes last until the end of the turn. So a good way to explain this is that both effects are 2 different ways of expressing how mirrors work. The spell makes the 2 values match, thus making each a perfect mirror of the other, thankfully to your benefit, while the monster version reverses the stats, kind of like how mirrors reverse an image. Mechanically, it's a pretty cool way to manipulate stats, with the pendulum version better at debuffing, while the monster effect can be used to mess with the opponents, though can also take your monsters with a small attack but huge defense stat and turn them into combat juggernauts. Even the bit that burns you for 500 can still help you with other effects that we've talked about previously. Not to mention it has an extra bonus effect against superstitious opponents. Luck is a part of any tournament run, no matter how skillful you are, and your opponent wouldn't want to ruin theirs by breaking a mirror, would they? Performage Plush Fire is a level 4 fire pendulum monster with 1000 attack and defense and a scale of 5. As a spell, if any number of Performage monsters you control are destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your pendulum zone. Then you take 500 damage. As a monster, if this card on the field is destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can special summon a Performage monster from your hand or deck, except a copy of this card. And this is why this is one of the most powerful effects in the game, especially at the time it was released. And considering it's currently banned, probably still is. Floating effects are nothing new. Even ones that let you trigger it with your own removal isn't out of the question. But you may have noticed that it doesn't have a limitation on how many times this can trigger per turn. Something that got out of hand basically immediately. Partly because Pendulum support came with a few cards that destroyed your own to do things, and one of the most bonkers was Wavering Eyes. This was probably the biggest factor in most games involving pendulums, which multiplied during the mirror match, though I won't go into that nonsense, though if you want me to go on a big rant about Wavering Eyes, let me know, there is a lot to unpack about this. However, even if you were just playing this card in a pendulum deck, this card gives you so much utility, and Plushfire made it so much worse. Not only did popping 2 scales get you any pendulum monster in the game, Plushfire would get you a Performage, which could be Damage Juggler. If you use Juggler for an Xyz summon and detach it as material, you could search out another Plushfire. Now, while it was legal, Monkey Board was basically a 1-card scale that got you anywhere from level 2 to 5 monsters, so you could summon back all of your available Plushfires and pop them again with a card like Performapow Pendulum Sorcerer. which would not only then get you more monsters to use, but would then trigger Plush Fire again, summoning out more Performages to use as material. But as a scale 5, you could just use it as a pretty solid high scale for the theme, and then pop it again with another effect once you were finished using it for Pendulum Summoning. The amount of effects that use Destruction to synergize with Pendulums turned Plushfire into an engine that took costs and catapulted them specifically into the advantage zone. When this card was around, game balance was nothing but a hazy mirage upon the horizon, and thankfully, we never had to worry about it ever again. At least to that extent, because with the release of new Performage monsters, Plushfire is actually getting an errata to add hard once per turns to all of its effects, presumably so it can be unbanned for proper play. Heck, I wrote that before the OCG list dropped, and there it is, Plushfire's back at 1. Now, I made a video a while back, and I mean a while back, talking about how I hate erratas like this. It basically ruins the functionality of cards when trying to play retro formats. We actually saw how it changed events like the GOAT Format Festival in Master Duel. Personally, I'd much rather have seen a new Plushfire be printed at an accessible rarity to preserve the old card. Maybe give it a funny little reference name like Crushfire, I don't know. But at the very least, the scariest, spiciest ice cream cone will soon see play once again. And considering how gosh darn cute it is, I can't really complain too much about the changes. I think what I provided so far is all I can muster for now. Besides, looking at this thing's cute little face just makes all the negativity I feel evaporate, including the anxiety that that party whistle it's blowing on isn't a party whistle, but instead a fuse inching closer and closer to its explosion while we're all right next to it. How precious. Performage Trick Clown is a level 4 light monster with 1600 attack and 1200 defense, and if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a Performage monster in your grave and special summon it, but its attack and defense become 0. Then you take 1000 damage. Yeah, so basically every early level 4 Performage was broken. Damage Juggler was a great way to turn discards into searches, Hat Tricker was a free special summon that wasn't once per turn, and Trick Clown is repeatable material that lets you keep making Xyz monsters the longer you're in control of the game. See, if you send this to the grave by whatever means and then summon it, you've spent its hard once per turn. But then you put it under an Xyz monster, and now it's no longer on the field, so it won't get run over by, well, literally anything thanks to the stat debuff. Then, on a following turn, you detach Trick Clown as material, and oh look, it can make its triumphant return once again. Summon another level 4 right next to it, and you've gotten the process started all over again. This would see play in just about everything at the height of its playability. Pendulum Piles, Shaddols as a great light material for Construct, and probably most infamously as part of the Clown Blade engine. We touched on this a bit in the Heroic Challenger video because the other half was Heroic Challenger 1000 Blades. That monster summons itself from the grave when you take damage, and as a level 4 monster, immediately gives you access to another rank 4. Detach them in the right order, and you've basically given yourself a self-perpetuating engine for accessing great utility effects. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if some version of Clown Blade was reintroduced as part of a pure Performage deck. After all, warriors and spellcasters have classically worked hand in hand since the earliest days of the game, and with the right effects helping you to bolster your field, I would say that this card is going to be great for keeping things under clown control. Performage Water Dancer is a level 4 water pendulum monster with 1200 attack, 1400 defense, and a scale of 2. As a spell, if you control a Performage monster, you can special summon this card, and when a monster declares an attack, you can target an attack position monster on the field and change it to defense position. As a monster, if this card is pendulum summoned, you can add a polymerization from your deck or grave to your hand, and if this card on the field is destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can target an attack position monster on the field and change it to defense position. This card is kinda bonkers. They fit a lot of different effects into this, letting you utilize it in a number of different ways to meet a number of different game plans. Being a free summon from the Pendulum Zone means this can help bolster your monster count on the field. Pendulum summoning it gives you access to polymerization, which means this card may be seeing play in a number of different Pendulum themes moving forward, and both modes have a way to change monsters to defense position, though I'm far more satisfied with how the Pendulum version does it, because it doesn't care who attacks, and it can target any attack position monster. So if your opponent is being aggressive, change their monster to defense position. If it's a Link, maybe change your monster to defense position to save on damage, or even save it if your defense is big enough. If you attack, change their monster to defense position to make it easier to run over. And in general, just having another good low scale makes the pendulum summoning that much easier. But I bet you dollars to donuts that this was one of their later additions to the cast. With all the fires and explosions going on here, it was only a matter of time before OSHA mandated they have someone on staff who could put out all those fires. But only in a literal sense. For all the metaphorical office politics kinds of fires, you're gonna have to talk to Performage Human Resorcerer. Performage Cup Tricker is a level 5 light pendulum monster with 1200 attack, 1400 defense, and a scale of 1. As a spell card, you can target a Performage Xyz monster you control and attach this card to it as material. If any number of cards are added to your extra deck, you can add a face-up Performage Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, and as a monster, if this card is in your hand, you can target an Xyz monster on the field, detach a material from it, and if you do, special summon this card, then an Xyz monster on the field loses 600 attack. If this card is detached from an Xyz monster and sent to the graveyard to activate that monster's effect, which seems like it combos with its pendulum effect to attach itself as a material, you can target 2 Xyz monsters you control. Detach one material from one of them, and if you do, attach it to the other as material. Talk about your shell games. This monster is an expert at getting cards right where they need to be. While in spell form, it either recharges an on-theme Xyz monster or acts as Dynamist Charge, getting you back an on-theme pendulum monster when any card is added to your extra deck, helping to keep your resources topped up. As a monster, it has a bit of a goblin biker vibe, detaching a material to summon itself, and if detached as material, can take a material from one Xyz monster and put it under another, helping to get the right cards right where they need to be, either to give that Xyz monster more activations or to enable any kind of special effect. And while this seems like a lot of durdling around, not really accomplishing anything, all of that targeting is about to become very relevant. But I do need to move on. The more I talk about Cup Tricker, the more likely I am to activate the cup stacking crowd out there, and look, I have nothing against them, but these people, they frighten me. They've dedicated their time and effort towards honing their dexterity and precision so they can just stack cups in a particular manner as fast as possible. Clearly, these people are not bound by the norms of human experience, and I feel nervous even knowing they exist. Performage Wind Drainer is a level 5 wind pendulum monster with 2100 attack, 0 defense, and a scale of 4. As a spell, once per turn, you can target a Performage pendulum monster that you control and activate one of these effects. Either reduce its level by 1 or increase this card's pendulum scale by that pendulum monster's. As a monster itself, if your opponent controls a monster or a Performage monster is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand, but while it's in the monster zone, you can't special summon except Performage monsters. If this card is special summoned, you can reduce its level by 1, and once per turn, you can change the level of all level 4 Performage monsters you currently control to 5. This card is really good at expanding the range of options that you can Xyz summon into, though if you summon it with its own effect, remember that you can only make Performages while it stays on the field. Thankfully, we've got some stellar rank 5s coming up that this can help make, but if you'd rather make one of our rank 4s, we've got access to that as well. And that's just as a monster. With a little bit of help, this can be either a way to get your rank 5s into rotation, or turn this into a really good high scale. It's a great enabler for our extra deck plays, but just be careful it doesn't drain too much wind. Yeah, the card is breathtaking, but take too much breath and you're getting charged with assault. Performage Stilts Launcher is a level 6 Earth monster with 2200 attack and 0 defense, and if there are no monsters on the field at all, you can special summon this card from your hand, but you can't normal summon or set for the rest of the turn. During either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that would inflict damage to your opponent while you have another Performage monster in your grave, you can banish this card from your grave to burn your opponent for 2000 damage. Yeah, just cleave your opponent for a quarter of their starting life total. I like that it essentially adds on damage that you're already doing, though it can exacerbate any damage your opponent does to themselves. So casually hitting them for 2k out of nowhere is gonna be a pretty sweet treat. Sadly, it's gonna be a little tough to deploy going second, but like with Damage Juggler, this at least has utility in the graveyard, so it's a nice choice to discard if nothing else, even if its usage is a little stilted. Real quick, if you've enjoyed the video so far, I'd super appreciate it if you'd consider dropping a like, subscribe, and hitting that notification bell. Little things like that go a long way towards helping the channel out. Alright, that covers our main deck monsters, now it's time for the extra deck. And we're starting off with one of our wildest newcomers, Performage Trapeze Witch, a level 7 Dark Fusion monster with 2400 attack and 1800 defense, requiring 2 Performage monsters as material. Your opponent can't target Performage monsters you control with card effects, also they can't be destroyed by your card effects. Your opponent's monsters can't target this card for attacks while you control a Performage monster other than a copy of this card, and when an attack is declared involving your Performage monster and an opponent's monster, you can make that opponent's monster lose 600 attack permanently. And that effect isn't once per turn either, so every time your Performages battle, they're getting debuffed and it is not going away, incentivizing you to field as many Performages as possible, especially with that attack redirection away from Witch. The targeting protection is superb, and while it's a little unorthodox for us to gain destruction protection against our own effects only, trust me, a few instances of that do come up in theme. But I think the weirdest thing about Trapeze Witch is how, tame it is. It doesn't really set up a big power play, it just supports your other cards, which is, well, after playing fusion decks like Branded and Chimera for so long, I'm just not used to fusions working like that. I gotta take some time to reflect on this. Performage Trapeze Magician is a rank 4 Light Exceeds monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, requiring any 2 level 4 spellcaster monsters as material. While on the field, you never take damage if the amount is less than or equal to this card's attack, which basically makes you immune to all of your self-burning Performage effects. Once per turn, during either player's main phase 1, you can detach an Exceeds material from this card, then target a face-up attack position monster the turn player controls other than this card, and it can make a second attack during each battle phase that turn, also destroyed at the end of the battle phase. If this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, or if this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to the grave, you can special summon a Performage monster from your deck. This was the boss monster for the theme for the longest time, if you could even really call it that, but honestly, it's very dangerous. While you do risk losing the monster that you pick, Trapeze gives any other monster an unrestricted double attack, and giving that kind of benefit to a monster that's not supposed to have it is a great way to end games quickly. This is also why Trapeze Witch keeps your Performages safe from your own effect destruction, because now you can use this with no downside. It's also funny removal for your opponent's monsters, giving their monster the double attack, but they lose it before they can go to main phase 2. There's also the nice floating effect going on here, but really, granting the double attack is going to be the main focus of this card, alongside its upgraded form that we'll cover in just a bit. For now, just focus on the card at hand, and whatever you do, do not look down. Don't do it! I see you thinking about it, but trust me, best to focus on what's going on screen until this is all over. It's the best way to avoid confronting how high in the air you are right now. Performage Shadowmaker is a rank 5 Dark Exceeds monster with 2600 attack and 1000 defense, requiring 3 level 5 monsters as material. When a card or effect is activated that targets this card as a quick effect, you can detach a material from this card to special summon a Performage Shadowmaker from your extra deck. You can detach a material from this card and send a Performage monster from your deck to the grave to add a rank up magic spell from your deck to your hand. And if the last material is detached from this card, you can special summon a Performage monster from your graveyard. Wow, this card is a riot, no joke. With Wind Drainer, you can turn it and 2 other level 4 monsters into 5s to make these, then you need to find a targeting effect, and that can come from Cup Tricker pretty easily. And it's not even that difficult to search, just detach a material, send a damage juggler from deck to graveyard to get that rank up magic, and then banish the juggler to get the Cup Tricker. Then attach it from the Pendulum Zone to the Shadowmaker that you just made, and then chain its effect to make a new Shadowmaker. Then you can take those 2 and then overlay for Utopic Future, and then make Utopic Draco Future on top of that. Or overwhelm your opponent with a bunch of 2600 attack monsters. Really, with an effect like this, the sky's the limit. But we are gonna have to revisit the safety concerns here. This isn't Hanonji Academy, Shadowmaker. You can't just run around with giant scissor blades like that. At least put the safety cap on those. Performage Trapeze High Magician is a rank 5 Light Exceeds monster with 2700 attack and 2200 defense, requiring any 2 level 5 spellcaster monsters as material. It can't be destroyed by battle or card effects while it has material, and your opponent takes any effect damage that you would have taken instead, which is way better than base Trapeze, though that effect can only be applied a number of times up to the number of material on this card per turn. And if this card has Performage Trapeze Magician as material, this card gains the following effect. You can attach a material from this card so that it can make up to 3 attacks during each battle phase this turn. And with 2700 attack, this is quite literally an OTK against an open board. So I suppose the idea is to get some free burn pings on your opponent before detaching a material for that sweet multi-attack, so long as we use that rank up magic we got from Shadowmaker to evolve this from Trapeze Magician. And with those protections in place, alongside perhaps some targeting protection from Trapeze Witch and piercing from Fire Dancer, and we've got one dangerous specimen on our hands. Expect to get frustrated by this monster's vicious performance, and I must remind you now more than ever, do not look down. Not that a monster called Trapeze High Magician has put us in any more danger, it's just a precaution. I am being so serious and normal about this. Have I told all of you that I have a fear of heights? Alright, that's all of our extra deck offerings. Now it's time to take a look at our spells and traps. Rank Up Magic, Magical Force is our current expert on Tautology, a quick play spell card that targets a rank 4 spellcaster Xyz monster in your grave and special summons it, negating its effect, and if you do, special summon a rank 5 spellcaster Xyz monster from your extra deck, which is treated as an Xyz summon, using that monster as material, and if you do, attach this card to it as an additional material. So the primary usage seems to be taking a Trapeze Magician that's in our graveyard, presumably by linking it off, and turning it into Trapeze High Magician. But that's not the only use case we have. Granted, the rank 5 spellcaster pool is pretty shallow, but we can use our wealth of level 4 monsters to make number 104 Masquerade, send it to the graveyard, then use Magical Force to turn it into number Chaos 104 Umbral Horror Masquerade, which negates a monster effect on the opponent's field, rips a card out of their hand, and halves their life points all in one go. The only other off-theme option is Empress of Prophecy, but I don't think we'll be splashing in spellbooks here anytime soon. For now, we're primarily using this to get Trapeze High Magician and Shadowmaker. Everything else is just parlor tricks. Bubble Barrier is a continuous spell card that keeps each Performapal and Performage monster you control from being destroyed by battle or card effect once per turn each, and you take no battle damage from attacks involving Performapal and Performage monsters. That's right, we've got a little crossover card between the Performa themes, but doesn't amount to much more than some thin protection and battle damage prevention. The thing that gets me is that the Performapal part never actually comes up in the anime. Dennis plays this, gets a little use out of it, and then poof, is never seen again. Yuya isn't even in the duel, but I guess with names that similar, they were bound to have some cards that overlapped. Though, that being the case, I expected a lot more cards like this to bubble to the surface. Trick Box is a normal trap card that you can activate if any number of face-up Performage monsters you control are destroyed by a battle or card effect and sent to the grave. Target a monster your opponent controls and take control of it until the end phase, then special summon a Performage monster from your graveyard to your opponent's field. And during the end phase of this turn, give control of the monster special summoned by this effect to its owner. So you lose a monster, but in turn you gain one of your opponents, temporarily, while you give your opponent one of your Performages from the graveyard, then they swap back by the end of the turn. Well, it certainly fits the energy of these mischievous miscreants, and since you can trigger this using your own destruction effects, you can be pretty proactive with this, taking one of your opponent's best monsters and linking it away before they get it back, while you can give them something like Flame Eater or Plush Fire if available to get even more value. But once again, as a trap card, it takes way too long to get online to be used effectively, a fate that has befallen a number of cool and interesting cards, which leaves you with a pretty tantalizing choice here. You could choose to add a starter card to your deck, or you could get what's inside the mystery box, and there could be anything in there. It could even be a starter card. You know how much we've always wanted one of those. So that's all the Performage cards, but what do we do with them? Well, Trapeze Beatdown seems to be the order of the day. Get Witch and High Trapeze into rotation, and you've got a big multi-attacker that's not going to be easy to interact with. So we want to get our mages onto the field ASAP, while having cards that can vent them into the graveyard so we can take advantage of Damage Juggler and Trick Clown's effects, which means we can let the rest of our cards cover the job of keeping our opponent from messing with our game plan. So what can we play to help them out? Well, it's been a nice reprieve, but now that we're talking about another spellcaster theme, Secret Village of the Spellcasters is back on the menu, but it's even worse than before, because now that pendulums are in the mix, we have access to Majesty Pegasus the Draco Slayer. If pendulum summoned, you can add a field spell from your deck to your hand, read Village, then discard a card, which, as we've already established, is a pretty big upside for us. It also triggers when summoned by the effect of a Draco Slayer card, which are actually old pendulum friends with Performages, and they've only gotten better with age. Luster Pendulum will eventually be able to pop Plush Fire like in the old days, triggering its effect. We just need a second or third copy to actually activate the effect. And with all of our level 4 pendulum non-tuners, Luster goes great with them to make Ignister Prominence, which is not only good at triggering the on-destruction effects of our pendulums, and is not only one of the most powerful pieces of removal in the game, it's also one of the easiest ways to trigger Majesty Pegasus, pulling it right out of the deck. Folks, I'm just saying, Draco Face-Off is back to 3 copies. We may be seeing the resurgence of Draco Pals, but with less pals and more mages. I'd also be remiss if I didn't bring up some other pendulum staples that you'll want to keep your eyes on. Beyond and Exceed the Pendulum both either get you to or recover your various pendulum monsters respectively, while acting as a bridge to get to other Link monsters, namely our Link 4s, ranging from Access Code Talker to Appaloosa, Bow of the Goddess. Getting to the right Performage is almost as important as what those cards do, and for that, Small World is a fantastic tool. Having a monotype deck with a variety of attributes and only a few stat overlaps means we can turn just about any Performage into any other Performage, making your plays a lot more consistent. We've also got a few hand traps that fall under that umbrella. Both Effect Veiler and Drollin Lockbird are themselves spellcasters, making them excellent bridges for the middle part of that card. With Fusion, Xyz, and Pendulum all well represented in our deck, we're just asking to get hit by Dimensional Barrier. So, to cut our opponent off at the source, we'll need some cool spellcaster Link monsters. On top of the ones we've already covered, with our variety of attributes, we have access to a lot of the Charmer monsters. But with all the spare spellcasters we'll have in play, we can also make a Golden Allure Queen. This gets you a gigantic monster that contests just about anything with that 4000 attack stat for a turn, and a free body that you can use for any other kind of summon. Not to mention that it comes with its own removal and protection. It's a bit more resource intensive than Selene is, but we also don't have a lot of on-theme spell cards to get value out of their revival effect. Oh, and speaking of spells, play Foolish Burial, it's cracked. As for a silly tech pick, how about trying out Tremendous Fire? 1000 damage is pretty hefty with the drawback of hitting you for 500, but what if you could just hit your opponent for 1500 damage by using Trappy's High Magician's effect? Granted, we already have a few self-burn effects from Trick Clown and Flame Eater, but we can ramp things up with a few choice burn cards, especially ones that hurt both players and act as removal. Cards like Blazing Mirror Force and the Errata Ring of Destruction only deal damage to your opponent if you're dealt that damage first. But if you avoid taking that damage by making your opponent take it, it's kinda like you got to use these effects for free. And that's everything I have to say about Performages. I'm very excited to see how they function in a modern environment, especially because they'll get to reunite with all the old cards that they used to play with that got shunted onto the ban list because they were pretty busted. We'll get to see if they can stand up to the new game-breaking threats since their arrival, and what these new augmentations can do to help them keep pace with the competition. So make sure you're on your A game, because this is gonna be on your Performage review. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are Performages still worth the price of admission, or are they too busy clowning around? And which one's your favorite? Me personally, I'm a big fan of Hat Tricker myself. They've got a lot of VV vibes from Final Fantasy IX, and I just love that game. Let me know who your favorite is down below, and if you haven't already, please be sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons, as well as the lovely people over at Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. Today's episode is also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders, Simic Toadstool and Upstairs Media, Nebula Navigators 3rd Dynasty, 50 Gigabytes, Ada Basilisk, Adams Ajdel, Owexitowa Hime, Anansi Dragon, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Kane Senpai, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Comrade Copperbottom, Emony Chan, Eric, Frankie, Garland Chaos, Green Knight, Gloomba 331, Great Big Pillock, Groog, Hairbear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Howling Zangetsu, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Carp, Mana Charge, Marion James E. Picata, Mega Combi, Millennia Asta, Mern, Nathan Vig, Natiel Lee Alexander, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, RL Man, Sammy Haim, Scott48, Serenity Towns, Skybuster Leo, the Phantom Knights of Shitted Pants, the Critic of Innocence, Thievery Coast and the Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders, a Random Pup, Ariel Kersey, Baron Von Titty Sprinkles, Beelzephyr, Burnag, Blitzwolf, Borger with a Shotgun, Chaz Ghost, Childish Lamar, Dr. Reaper, R.I.P., Drachenwald, Eki Bullock, Eva Padilla, Hike Boyagian, Herbal D, Ignis, the True Draco Slayer, Jester Designs, Kale the Dragon, Kevon Public, Lemon Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lobomaru02, Manga Pages, Matt Simmons, McSpoofy, Michael Shimabukuro, Michael Sharp, Nitromo, Nyx, Obsidian, Ryan Simon, Shizuki Nijimura, Sophie, apparently, Stephen Williamson, Taylor Seymour, Terror Top to 3, The Legendary Raven, The Pokemon 52, Tiger X2476, Visor KG, Zaldreka and Zalus, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, and be a part of these credits, along with other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you would check out the link to my Patreon in the description, or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you'd like to see another video about saucy spellcasters that just so happened to also come out in this Animation Chronicles set, check out this video I did covering Allure Queens. Yeah, that's a real deck now. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
I draw! Here's rank 4 Performage Trapeze Magician! Performage Flame Eater!